All right. Hey, this is Doug, your realtor here in Utah. And today we've got a very special guest that's joined me. If you can see a little bit of a resemblance, there's a reason why. This is my older brother. No,
Oh, yeah.
just kidding. This is my son, Nate. And Nate has his own marketing company called Avaro Marketing.
Mhm.
But today we're not going to talk about marketing. We're going to talk about something a little bit more personal because I think everybody has challenges. Whether it's the challenge of getting older and losing your hair, uh, or different things, dyslexia, different things like that. So Nate has had a few different a challenge growing up, and he's going to talk through that a little bit with us and share. And I find it really fascinating, and more than that, I think you're going to find it fascinating how he's attacked it. So anyway, with all that being said, we'll get started. Welcome, Nate.
Thank you.
So with I guess the first question really is Nate actually kind of later in life realized that, and we found that he had ADHD.
Mhm.
That's almost like a Kleenex word anymore.
Yeah.
It seems like half the elementary schools are on Ritalin. I mean, and
Mhm.
stuff like that. You were never on any medicine that way going through school,
Mhm.
but when did you first realize that maybe there was something there? Maybe you didn't put the ADHD term on it, but when did you first realize that something was different that way?
It's a good question. It was actually back in high school. I'd go to different classes, and I realized that every single class was a little different for me. I'd go to English class, and I would want to, if I was wearing a hoodie, just put a hood up and just not listen and not really care because I wasn't really focused on the topic. I wasn't really focused or engaged in the work, and I wouldn't blame my teachers. I feel like my teachers tried hard enough. Um, but oftentimes it was something where I felt like, okay, I'm really disengaged from, I'm not really hyper focused on this topic. But then I'd have classes like history, where I would get into debates with my teachers. I would get into conversations way too deep. I remember I confused me and my history teacher went back and forth, and the whole class was confused at one point when talking about World War II. I was asking about the demand of Danzig, which is a term that basically gets thrown around for what Hitler told Poland right before he invaded. And I found that I just really hyper fixate on some of these topics, and I really started to wonder why near the end of high school. Like, okay, why do I get an A at 108% in history, but then I get a B minus in English? Like that doesn't make sense. I feel like I'm an A plus student, but why doesn't that align?
Okay, I like that, and it's interesting because you were always a good student,
Mm-hmm.
and to me, I think one of the biggest stigmas of ADHD is it means you're not smart.
Mm-hmm.
And I would put my son's IQ up against anybody's. Kid is super smart. Now, just like he said, it's got to be in the channel,
Very specific.
marketing, history,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. But I think we're all that way a
Oh yeah.
little bit. I mean, but so with that, then did that impact more than just school? Did it impact on a day-to-day basis? Were there were there any more outside just school?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I mean, it really started to affect me into adulthood as I got older because there's a lot of things that are involved once you become an adult. It's not just classes anymore. You now have your finances, you now have your daily routine, and you just go down that list. There's so many things you then have to balance once you become an adult. And I realized very quickly that I would hyper focus on things that were very large subjects that like I probably should have just chosen one and focused, right? So like I would spend a month, 2 months studying the stock market, studying financial trends, studying what Warren Buffett has done in the last 2 years, reading 4, 5, 6, 7 books on stock market and how to invest. But then it's like, okay, my job is a media buyer. How does this at all affect my job? And I often found that if I was sitting there reading all these books about the stock market, my job performance would start to hurt. And so I saw real daily and life trends as I got older with how it was affecting me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I know. at some point you went to the doctor,
Mhm.
and they did try to do some medicine
Yes, they did.
to help. Walk us through. I know you don't do that now.
Mhm.
What was it that what did it change you?
Mhm.
What did you not like? Did you why do you not do it today?
Mhm.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, good question. So when I first started taking medicine, they put me on a really light dosage initially, and I didn't see any changes. I just didn't see anything. So I kept raising my dosage amounts, and it hit a point where I was sitting there, and my now wife, we'd be having conversations, and she explained to me that she felt like I was dull. It felt like she felt like I'd lost all the spark in me. And the more I thought about it, is all of a sudden my life became: I wake up in the morning, go to work, come home, barely any conversation, bare minimum effort at all. It basically just it took my highs and it took my lows and just tried to crunch them down to be an average.
So you became 70 overnight.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. And
Woohoo!
so, like, my life just became, I had no ups, I had no downs. It was just all melatonin, all the same level. And I reached a point where I was like, okay, well, all my passions, the stock market investing information I'd learned, all this other business information I'd learned, it's like all that became unapplicable, one. And then two, it's like, I felt like I had no more fun. I felt like it was just the same thing every day, melatonin. I couldn't get through it. I felt like it was just average. Every day was just average. And so it started to really affect me and my now wife's relationship, to the point where I just said, all right, I'm just going to stop taking it for a month. I'm going to see what happens. And so I stopped taking it for a month. And then magically, it was like she said that all of a sudden my mood had improved. She felt like I was spontaneous again, just having fun out of nowhere, just really out of nowhere, just gained who I was back. And so that's why I've stopped taking it since.
So, so as we're talking about this, understand that this was when you were 20.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
19, yeah.
1920. Well, you weren't married at 19,
No, but yeah.
but yeah. So, so with this, I mean, he's telling you how it impacted him at 20. Now back up into a first grader,
Mm-hmm.
that is excited, can't sit in his seat very good, can't focus on this. So let's give them this dose, and then now they become that 70-year-old that we just joked about, where it's just very robotic and in and out. And it's like, is that really where we need to go with this thing?
Yeah.
Because man, it really it is fun with Nate, because he really, I mean, he tells you he hyper focuses in on stuff, but then usually he calls me and it's like, Dad, did you know? it's like going on a roller coaster, and it's a blast because he teaches me so much daily about different things that he's learned, but he teaches me in a way I can learn, because I am not a reader. My wife, look, she can go through Moby Dick in 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Not me. I'm lucky if I can get through a magazine article. but he can tell me, and so maybe I have ADHD too.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. Never been tested for it, but
yeah.
Anyway. But to me, I get the Cliff Note edition that quick, and it's like, woo! All right. So now you figured this out, and maybe one other thing to throw in this whole thing too, because I think, and I'm just going to give you my opinion, because in our world right now, I think one of the things that I think, just as much as a doctor, a regular general practitioner, a GP doctor, I think everybody needs a counselor for some things, because, so Nate's got all this stuff going on, and then we add in COVID. And so his graduation was sitting in a car with the principal on the roof of the high school.
Mm-hmm.
And don't talk to anybody, don't touch anybody, and all of that stuff. You look through, it was, from a father's standpoint, it was hard, because this guy was ranked number 2 in the state throwing the javelin, and had some interest from colleges, but they needed to see distances.
Mm-hmm.
So they needed to see track meets that fall or that spring. Guess what didn't happen? And so you sat there, and I watched him have to basically reset all of his dreams, aspirations, and things like that from that goal. And to me, one of the as a dad, it really makes me proud of him because he was able to. I don't know how many people couldn't, or if we had to do that again, if that was going to be how hard that would be. And I think, again, in my opinion, I think the mental health part of things, we have not seen the biggest issues come through yet, because I think that they're still in junior high, they're still in the high school, because all of those kids that have faced that and gone through masks and all that other stuff, I think that's going to be a real challenge mental health wise.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so off my soapbox. So with the ADHD, one of the things I think is really cool is that you talk about how now your ADHD is your superpower.
Yes.
So how did you term it that way, and how is it your superpower?
That's a good question. I call it my superpower now because I've realized that marketing is so diverse that no matter what I'm interested in, I can hyper focus on it. I say that because, for example, if I am really interested in the stock market, what I can do is compare the stock market to trends on Facebook ad library, and I can say, okay, how many of these stock market companies are running ads on Facebook? How many of these companies are probably doing it profitably? I can do that stuff to balance it out. And then furthermore, it's something where I can take a subject like, for example, stock market or financials in the stock market, and I can say, okay, how does that apply to my current company right now? How does that apply to the financials of Avaro, and how do I take that and grow it? It's kind of a fascinating tool. It makes it so I can be very versed on almost any part of my company. I can have a conversation with anybody about their job. And at some point, I guarantee you, anybody in my company, I have either worked or been hyper focused on a subject in that topic. And I can work with anybody on any topic, on anything. If it's sales, if it's email marketing, Facebook ads, Google ads, whatever it is, I've done it and or learned it. So
I think that's really cool, and I think that really is true, because in your business, you're able to deal with a company and dive in to an automobile company or a clothing company or a hat company or a fishing company or whatever, and really be able to hyper focus in and do things that really nobody else can do.
Agreed.
So that's really cool. In kind of in the close of it, are there things today that you do that maybe somebody doesn't know about, as far as to help you with your ADHD? Because I'm assuming at some point you've got to turn it off.
Yeah, well, something I do that I actually, funny enough, it came from an Instagram video I saw. I wish I could credit the person, but I don't remember who posted it. But what I do is I listen to a 25 hertz frequency. I know that sounds really strange, but it's a nice little humming tune. You'll hear it in your brain, but all these random voices and things that are going on in your brain that are always trying to move when you have ADHD, all of a sudden just dies down. You take it away, all of it. It just helps you focus in. That's a big step for me. And then two, making lists and making plans. I think that helps me far more than anything else ever could. Is you sit down and you say, all right, for today, I have to do X, Y, Z, but I'm going to give myself the leniency to just get it done before the end of the day. I set a timeline, and then I say, all right, I have to get these things done. It might take me 3 hours to get one task done because I bounce around to 3 other things I need to get done today. But because I have that list, I can always circle back to something and get it done. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, in a lot of ways, that's what I do with real estate.
Yeah.
Because to me, in real estate, basically your afternoons blow apart.
Yeah.
That's when everybody's available to see houses and stuff like that. And so then you've got to get your list of all the paperwork and everything like that done in the morning, so and then that way you're ready to go in the afternoon.
Yep.
So that's cool. Well, I'd encourage you to look at that 25 hertz information that Nate was just talking about. And I would really encourage you to look at the ADHD and see if you can't make it your superpower or your kid's superpower, because it really is a cool thing. And to me, couldn't be prouder of of him and what he and how he's used it and harnessed it. And I know you could do the same.